The story is making headlines this hour. South Korea votes down Boeing's F-15 Silent Eagle in its $7.7 billion tender for next-generation fighter jets, forcing open a new bidding process for one of the world's biggest defense deals of the year. Some alarming news on North Korea's nuclear capabilities. U.S. experts say that the rogue state may have attained the technology to produce essential nuclear parts on its own. Plus, in Kenya, confusion surrounding a 4-day siege at a shopping mall rages on. Kenyan authorities say they now have the situation under control, but there are reports that gunmen are still inside the mall, while dozens remain unaccounted for. Well, these stories and more next on Primetime News. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Tuesday, September 24th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I am Yoo Ji-hye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We start with Korea's fighter jet project, a seemingly done deal that's back to square one.
Defying speculation that Boeing's F-15 Silent Eagle would win the multi-billion-dollar bid, Korea voted against the tender. A Defense Ministry correspondent Han Da-eun has more on what led to the surprise decision.
To the surprise of many, no final winner was announced for Korea's fighter experimental project, better known as the FX project, that aims to replace the nation's aging fleet of combat aircrafts. After holding a 2-hour-long meeting presided over by Korean Defense Minister Kim Kwan-jin, the Defense Acquisition Program Administration announced Tuesday that the $7.3 billion deal would be relaunched from square one, as no contender met the needs of the Korean government and the Korean Air Force. Defense Ministry spokesman Kim Min-seok told reporters immediately after the meeting that Boeing's F-15 Silent Eagle had been the sole candidate because it was the only model that met the Korean government's price range, but said that most of the participating panel voted against the model as Korea's next-generation fighter jet during the meeting.
The majority of the panel voted against, considering North Korea's increasing missile and nuclear threats, as well as the current trend in the global air defense industry that centers around high-tech fighter jets.
Although the F-15 SE has garnered wide acclaim over the years, its limited stealth features have been highlighted as a major weakness. Kim added that the ministry, together with the Defense Acquisition Agency and other related parties, will review the FX deal from the beginning by taking a different approach, one that includes trying to expand the total budget for the project. Officials during the briefing stressed that they'll push through the process promptly in an attempt to fill the air defense vacancy as quickly as possible. It's unclear, however, whether the Korean Air Force will get to deploy new fighter jets by 2017 as scheduled. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
And for more on Korea's fighter jet deal and what is to come of the competition among defense giants, we have Arirang News' Kim Hyun-bin joining us in the studio. Welcome to the studio.
Hey guys.
Well, Hyun-bin, it seems as if this Boeing F-15 Silent Eagle was in the lead because of its price, but tell us if there were other technological features that made it competitive against its other rivals, the Lockheed Martin F-35 and the EADS's Eurofighter jet, and whether we're going to be back to a three-horse race.
Since Boeing has narrowly edged out its two rivals in the past bidding, many expect the three to be locked again in a tight race in the near future. And here are some of the weaknesses and strengths of each jet. The F-35 is the only jet that has full stealth capabilities among the three. The F-15 SE fits in the budget set by the Defense Acquisition Program Administration, while the Eurofighter promised to jointly manufacture most of its jets in Korea. The F-15 SE is an upgraded version of the F-15K, which the Korean Air Force currently uses, so it fits in well with the Korea-U.S. Combined Forces strategy, and its airstrike capabilities have been proven on the battlefield. The F-15 SE is an improvement in that it includes a conformal weapons bay, fly-by-wire flight controls, and other enhanced avionics like high-tech radar. The F-15 SE is also considered to have semi-stealth capabilities, but the level of those capabilities has yet to be determined, so there's an unknown there. The EADS Eurofighter has also semi-stealth capabilities, but at a little lower level than the F-15SC. EADS sweetened the deal by promising to invest $2 billion in technology transfer in Korea. And out of the 60 fighter jets that will be manufactured, 53 will be made in Korea, which will create more than 50,000 jobs here in the nation.
Now, Hyunbin, you've mentioned the stealth capabilities a number of times. Why is South Korean government so keen on making sure the jet has that capability?
Well, fighter jets containing full stealth capabilities are better able to dodge radar detection. And take, for example, Lockheed Martin's F-35 in comparison to the F-15. The F-35, which has full stealth, looks 1/100th the size of the F-15 on radar, which of course makes it much harder to detect. And stealth can be used for other purposes as well.
Because theirs is the core technology, core capability we can use as an security strategy to not only just for the North Korean air power, but the neighboring countries' new developments. Chinese and Russians are developing their indigenous stealth fighter jets, and even neighboring Japan has made a contract with the F-35. So the F-35.
For these reasons, 15 retired Air Force Chief of Staff sent letters in late August to the National Assembly, the Presidential Office, and the Defense Ministry to suggest a reconsideration of the selection criteria, which they felt was too weighted toward price over defense capability. The retired general stressed that out of the three choices, Lockheed Martin's F-35 is more suitable choice due to its full stealth capabilities.
So now that the project is up for grabs, what's left for the Korean government to do?
The South Korean government will go back and look further into the three candidates, try to reduce the asking price and find ways to add features. But experts say the most important thing is to ensure a transfer of technology, so Seoul is able to produce state-of-the-art fighter jets of its own in the future. Even though Boeing promised to transfer technology in the first phase of the fighter jet project, not much information has been transferred.
We cannot depend upon the United States air technology forever. So we need some certain level of technology transfer. The South Korean air industry is not fully satisfied with the level of technology transfer by the Boeing. So I think there is a lot of room should be improved in terms of technology transfer.
The Korean government is currently preparing to launch its fighter jet development project, KFX, whose mission will be to produce advanced multi-role fighter jets. To do so, experts say that the Korean government needs to put more pressure on the three firms to ensure it gets the tech transfer that Korea needs.
So now that Korea will restart the bidding process, how long it roughly take for them to come to a final decision?
Well, I talked with Dr. Kim Cho-ru after the announcement, and he said it will take about 1.5 to 2 years to finalize the evaluation process.
All right, so it looks like the jets will have to wait for quite a bit. Thanks so much for that report, Hyunbin. Now to some alarming news on North Korea's nuclear capabilities. U.S. experts say that the rogue state may have obtained the technology to produce essential nuclear parts on its own.
Our Hwang Sung-hee tells us this may mean that years of export controls and international sanctions to stop the country's nuclear program may have been futile.
North Korea may already be producing crucial nuclear parts on its own inside its isolated country. This is according to a report released on Monday by American nuclear experts Joshua Pollack and Scott Kemp, based on analysis of North Korean documents and media reports. Based on their study, the two found it highly likely that the North obtained the technology to produce the essential components of gas centrifuges to process uranium for making nuclear bombs no later than 2009. If so, Pollack said it will be even more difficult to stop North Korea from expanding its program through foreign shopping expeditions, and that policies based on export controls, sanctions, and interdiction will not gain much traction. The report is in line with a number of signs that Pyongyang is activating or even expanding its nuclear production facilities, undermining years of global efforts to end its nuclear program. Last month, a Washington-based think tank cited satellite images in a report that said the North appears to have doubled the size of its uranium enrichment plant at Yongbyon. This raised concerns about a possible expansion of North Korea's enrichment capabilities, which was backed by further evidence this month when satellite photographs showing steam emerging from the Yongbyon reactor were released. With such progress in North Korea's nuclear capabilities, Pollack suggests that the best option for now may be to prevent further North Korean rocket launches and nuclear tests rather than to ban its uranium enrichment program altogether. 황성희, Arirang News.
In a move aimed at throwing up obstacles for North Korea's nuclear program, China has released a long list of export bans on weapons-related technology and goods to the North.
Issued by China's Ministry of Commerce on Tuesday, the list includes dual-use products and technologies that can be used to build nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons. The ministry said the trade ban aims to bolster enforcement of UN Security Council resolutions on the communist state. Beijing has recently taken a tougher stance against Pyongyang, and experts say the announcement of the list can be interpreted as a sign to Washington and the rest of the international community about China's sincerity in meeting its commitments. The Korean government has issued a warning signal to the market on the recent rise in its currency resulting from an influx of foreign capital.
The Korean won has strengthened by nearly 9% in the past 3 months, fanning fears that it could hurt the nation's exports. Arirang reports.
The government has strengthened its monitoring of the local financial markets, assigning a major influx of foreign capital that can increase volatility in the economy. With the United States Federal Reserve making clear that it could begin tapering off its stimulus programs later this year, foreign money has been flowing into Korea, which has relatively stronger economic fundamentals than most other developing countries.
So they looked around and they saw Korea as being very attractive because we have relatively stronger fundamentals than India or Indonesia, but we have a slightly higher rate of return than the United States or Europe.
The net inflow of foreign capital in the past month alone topped 8.2 trillion won, or roughly $7.7 billion, pushing the value of the Korean won to the highest level in 8 months on Monday. The Korean currency, which closed at 1,070.4 won to the US dollar on Monday, has gained 8.7% of its value against the greenback in the past 3 months. A high-ranking government official told a meeting with businessmen on Tuesday that given unpredictable changes in global market trends, the sudden influx of foreign capital could mean an abrupt pullout of the money in the future. Even if foreign investors decide to keep their money in the country, experts say a strengthening won could be another problem.
The immediate risk is because all of the capital which is moving in, it's strengthening the won, and that will make our Korean exports uncompetitive.
Experts say until the Fed sends a clearer signal for its monetary policy, Korea is expected to be a better bet for at least weeks to come. But with global investment environment changing rapidly, they say it is important to take precautionary steps to cushion against any future instability. Yurian, Arirang News.
Korea's national debt has followed an upward trajectory since the 2008 financial crisis, and now the interest on that debt has reached a point where it could threaten the nation's fiscal soundness.
Our Oh Jin-ju has the daunting figures and tells us how it grew so big.
With Korea's national debt drawing ever nearer to 500 trillion won, that's some $465 billion, the annual cost of just paying the interest on that debt has also skyrocketed. Data released on Tuesday by Seoul's Finance Ministry and the National Assembly's Strategy and Finance Committee shows that the interest on the government debt for this year has surpassed the 20 trillion won mark, which is around $18.6 billion. This means that every Korean is responsible for over $370 of interest for the government debt. The government spending on interest payments has accounted for only around 6% of its fiscal budget since 2006, but this percentage jumped to 7.7% this year. Experts attribute the increase to a surge in government spending during the global financial crisis. Now, before the 2008 crisis, the country's national debt was on a steady upward trajectory. But the figure began to shoot up in 2009 after the crisis broke, and has continued to go up since then. By the year 2015, the national debt is expected to hit $475 billion. Analysts have voiced concerns that the growing interest payments could eventually push up the government debt again, producing a negative effect on the country's fiscal soundness, and they've called on the government to devise more plans to rein in the national debt. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features restrictions is on the rise. Closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature, circumstances.
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
The United States, the latest report, less than
unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
came on the news. We're trying to cover up the South.
And here's the latest on the mall siege in Kenya. Officials there say the hostage crisis is over and the government security forces have taken control of the Westgate shopping center in Nairobi, attacked by al-Shabaab militants. The Kenya's Interior Ministry says that all hostages taken by the Islamic radicals have been freed and that security forces are now sweeping the complex to make sure it's clear. The attackers, however, said in a message on a Twitter account that they're still resisting the government. At least 65 people have died in the 4-day siege and more than 170 were injured. Kenya's foreign minister says that 2 or 3 Americans were among the attackers.
This week's UN General Assembly could well be a chance for Japan to improve its image when it comes to women's rights. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is scheduled to speak at the international gathering, where he will reportedly pledge around $1 million to help female victims of wartime sexual slavery. Paul Yi reports on Abe's upcoming speech.
The UN General Assembly opened this week with heads of state and other high government officials set to present their views on the world's most pressing issues. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is scheduled to make his address in New York on September 26. Prime Minister Abe will also seek meetings with world leaders on the sidelines of the UN's open session. Japanese newspapers say Abe's upcoming speech at the UN will likely focus on human rights issues. Tokyo has been increasingly under fire in recent months and years for failing to sincerely acknowledge the atrocities carried out by Japanese forces during World War II. Abe will reportedly announce that Japan will earmark approximately $1 million in its annual budget to assist women who suffer from sexual violence. The money is expected to be managed by the International Criminal Court and will mainly support those affected by war in Africa. It's a stark contrast to the cold response given to the Korean government. Seoul has repeatedly called on Tokyo to resolve claims by Korean women who were forced into sexual slavery during World War II through a sincere apology and reparations. Abe's cabinet has denied that the Japanese military coerced women to serve in military brothels. Meanwhile, South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se will make his keynote speech the following day on the 27th. Government sources say there is a high possibility that Yoon will bring up the so-called comfort women issue during his address. In addition, Yoon is expected to meet with Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida to discuss ways to thaw icy relations between the two countries. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Failed smartphone maker Blackberry may soon have a private owner. The Canadian tech firm agreed to sell itself to its largest shareholder, Fairfax Financial, for $4.7 billion. Arirang's Hwang Jiek has more on the deal.
Blackberry introduced its first gadget back in 1999. The smartphones were once so addictive among on-the-go business people and other consumers for its wireless emailing function that it was nicknamed the Blackberry. The Canadian company had a good run until 2007, soon after Apple introduced the consumer-friendly touchscreen iPhone. Early this year, Blackberry bet heavily on a touchscreen smartphone, hoping it could recover some of the luster it used to enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we proudly present the Blackberry Z10 and the Blackberry Q10.
The bet, however, has not paid off. Days after Blackberry announced it was slashing 4,500 jobs, over a third of its workforce, the Canadian smartphone maker said Monday that it's going private in a $4.7 billion deal led by its largest shareholder, Fairfax Financial. Blackberry says Fairfax, a Canadian insurance company, has agreed to pay shareholders $9 per share, but added it will continue to explore other options until the deal is finalized. Blackberry smartphones, which enjoyed global market share of over 20% at their peak in the fall of 2009, is now just above 1%. 황지혜, Arirang News.
The South Koreans have another baseball reason to celebrate today, as Choo Shin-soo of the Cincinnati Reds has reached a historic milestone.
And Stephen Shea joins us from the Sports Center to tell us more about his feat. Stephen.
Hey guys, the Red center fielder, the choo-choo train, has made a stop at history, earning his third career 20 home run, 20 steal season to go along with his 100 runs and 100 walks. That makes him the 27th major leaguer to put up the elusive 20-20 100-100 stat line and the second player ever at the leadoff spot. Choo needed 2 steals going into the Reds matchup against the New York Mets on Monday, and during the game he got them and gave his team a much-needed boost. The score was deadlocked 2-2 in the bottom of the 10th, and with 2 on and 1 out, Choo smacked the ball to center, bringing home the winning run and guaranteeing Cincinnati a spot in the playoffs. And on to the greens. The latest women's world golf rankings have 16-year-old phenom Lydia Ko in 4th place, up 1 spot from last week. She's had a spectacular season, earning 6 top 10 finishes, including a win at the Canadian Women's Open, all as an amateur. She plans to turn pro next season. Meanwhile, the world's #1 Park In-bi remained at the top spot for the 24th straight week. And rounding the bases, it's time to talk about Tuesday's top KBO matchup. The Samsung Lions faced off against the SK Wyverns in Incheon. The Lions looking to go 7 straight. The Wyverns, their third. Now it's the second. Samsung's Chung Hyung-sik brings 2 home, and he also comes home himself on the next batter. It's 3-0. Now we go to the 5th. The Lions' Chae Young-woo hits a solo shot. It goes up 4-0. Now SK answers back with 2 solo homers, including this one by Kim Gang-min. He makes it 4-2. He hits another one in the 7th, but the Lions go on to win with a final score of 6-4. And looking at the scores from around the league, Lotte defeats Kia 8-2, while Nexon and Hanwha had their game rained out. That does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center for the latest forecast. Hello there.
Hello, Sean and Chi-hye. Well, most of the nation saw rain today.
So has the rain let up a bit?
Well, it has stopped raining in most parts of the nation. For details, let's move on to our satellite map. As you can see, we're seeing cloudy skies throughout the nation. But a heads up for those of you in the East Coast regions because the rain clouds are moving eastward. As a result, there may be heavy rain in the East Coast regions later at night until tomorrow afternoon. Elsewhere in the nation, the autumn rain will gradually come to an end by tomorrow morning. After the rain, temperatures will drop in the morning, so please be sure to dress accordingly. Now, taking a closer look at tomorrow's numbers, Seoul and Gwangju should get some sunshine, making it to the mid-20s, and cloudy Busan hits 25. Moving on to other regions, Daejeon and Jeju should get up to 24 degrees. Meanwhile, rainy Dokdo and Mangkimgang will peak at 20 and 12 degrees, respectively. Well, that's all I have for you this hour, but join me for another update after midnight.
And that's our broadcast on this Tuesday night. I'm Yoo Ji-hye in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening, and we'll see you soon.